before the recording, and it's raining, of course. Not supposed to rain at all, but here it is. Because rain don't care about no weather forecast. I'm going to start the recording right here real quick. Once I can find the button. Well, don't know if you can see it or not, but it's raining again. Visiting home, it's a chilly, kind of soggy day as of now. So what a better time to ride a two-stroke. At least it seems like the rain is backing off and hopefully it won't last too long. No. Whee! Off-roading on a 1972 two-stroke. Man, my visor's fogging up already. That's no good. Uh-oh, got a bump? Bump. Get up some speed so we got no more foggy visor. I tell you what, this rain thing really sucks. I was hoping it would stop in a moment, but it doesn't seem to want to. So it looks like we're gonna go for a bit of a wet ride here. Really hoping it stops. Like, really. Yeah, look at my spazzy tack. Of course it broke yesterday, right before I was gonna film today. But, oh well. I already pulled the thing apart twice trying to fix it. But, nope, didn't work. By this time, it's not even sealing. It keeps getting foggy after it rains and gets wet, so I'll have to order a new one. It's gonna suck. Might be hard to find, but we'll see how it goes. Also, welcome to the longest light in Raleigh. This thing sucks. Heck, I might even run out of gas by the time it changes. Nah, I'm just kidding, I just filled up. There we go. She's pretty quick for a 350. Oh, top. Okay, I see him up there. Alright, so, on this soggy, nasty, rainy day, I guess it's a decent enough time to talk about the virtues of small bore motorcycles. As a guest star, I have my 1972 Yamaha R5, little 352 stroke. Definitely falls well into the small bore category of things. Especially as opposed to the 1200 I usually ride. Ooh, they got a lot of cop cars there. Wonder what happened. But anyway, I guess one of the biggest things as far as small bores, well, if we're looking at four strokes, small bores, you know, 500 or less, are kind of famous for their great gas mileage. This is a two-stroke. Not so famous for its great gas mileage. It's got a 3-something gallon tank, and I'd be lucky if it lasted me 100 miles. Yeah, she didn't get great gas mileage, plus you have to worry about the oil. But anyway, that's beside the point. Small bores. Like I was saying, it's a practicality thing. You know, I live on a college campus more often than not, and most of the parking spots on that campus are bike racks. Motorcycles aren't allowed to park in car spaces, but you're allowed to park anywhere there's a bike rack. And when I'm on the 1200, that can be a bit of a bear, especially since a lot of them require you to go off-road to reach them. and the sheer weight and size of the 1200, as well as the fact that it's so quiet, can make things difficult. This thing, however, weighs a whopping, I don't know, 320 pounds, stopping wet, which we're experiencing right now, actually. Funny thing, that. And obviously, it's a lot easier to manage than the 1200 is. That's just basically easier to get around with. It may not have the power, but you don't really need that for in-town commuting. Same as you don't need the extended range. Okay, come on, logging truck. You're going very, very slow. There's someone in front of him. I can't fault him for that. But anyway, so yeah, that's the practicality side of things. Then there's the fun side of things. So when I had this bike, this was my first street bike. Really didn't appreciate it. Didn't have the right perspective, I guess. You know, my dad rode one when he was a kid. Pretty much not too long after these were produced, when they were still the king of the street. And when we were building it, getting it running, he always told me stories about, you know, how crazy fast they were, how scary they were. You know, power wheelies in second and third gear, as he recalled. And once we got it running, well, there were a few things that played against me. My expectations were sky high. I was expecting this thing to be able to hang with the 600 Super Sports of today, which with 35 horse at the time, actually less, because it wasn't running right, having a lot of issues with the ignition. Not even close. I actually, the first time I really opened it up on the street, I got out drag raced by a Prius, and that was infuriating. So for the longest time, I was just kind of passive-aggressively angry at this little bike for not being some beast. Well, over time, we started getting things right. As of now, it has a much better exhaust, DG expansion chambers, and it has an electronic ignition, which solved 90% of the issues I was having with it. And I'd say now it's probably pushing a good 40 horse, 5 over the factory rating. But I haven't dynoed it, I don't know for a fact. It's just what my butt dyno tells me. And around the time we were starting to get it right, I decided that I wanted a bike that had a lot of power. And would also be a good freeway bike. Because this thing, it'll do freeway speed, sure. But with a with a little 320-pound rocket sitting between your legs, it's not the most comfortable or the most reassuring feeling doing 70 miles per hour on this. More or less like riding a bicycle at 70 miles per hour. Which is exhilarating, yes. But not suitable for 3 hours of solid freeway travel. So I ended up with a 1987 FJ 1200, which, as I quickly found out, is literally the polar opposite of this bike. And I guess the easiest way to look at that is to classify the performance into two types. You have handling, and you have straight line horsepower and speed. Okay. The 1200 is just crazy with the horsepower. It's got about 130, which is obviously, looking at this thing, a lot more than I've ever had before. And it was a blast. I couldn't get enough for a long time. But where I usually live, you know, up high in the mountains, really not conducive to a straight line speed machine, especially one as heavy as the 1200. It weighs roughly twice what this bike does, 600 some odd pounds. And I quickly found that that was a huge limitation in the corners. First ride I took it on up in the mountains, I was with two of my buddies, both of them were on Honda 500. And I had about double the power they did, I guess. I don't know what those bikes were pushing exactly, but I know it was under 60. under 60 horse. And it didn't matter. They just ran away with it. I was dropping that 1200 all the way down, scraping the peg, and it just would not have it at all. Looks like it's loud. But yeah, so that was just, and I was so exhausted after riding that thing because you have to use a lot of body language with the 1200 to make it do anything. You have to throw yourself off the side of that bike to get it kicked in hard corners just to make sure you don't just skip off. It was then that I started getting that perspective I was talking about. Because the R5, you see, missed a shift too. Is the opposite. You know, it lacks that straight line speed, it lacks that horsepower, but oh my god, the handling on this thing is insane. And I'm just kind of floating through these corners here at about 60 miles per hour, which, you know, doesn't, even in the rain, doesn't make me nervous. The bike's just kind of floating and doing its own thing. It don't care. It's just gonna have a good time regardless. Even look at this little corner here. This is a fun one. And that was just no effort for it. Now I'm leaning her pretty far over. It's wet, it's slick, but the bike just didn't care. She sticks like glue. I don't even have sporty tires on this. These are just, I think they're Michelin's sport touring tires. They're a much harder compound than, say, a Pirelli Diablo. And they're meant to last a long time. And this bike, when I had it up in Boone, kind of something I took for granted, I was easily able to outmaneuver the 600s, the 1000s, to the corners, you know? I'm sitting here half throttle, crawling up their butts because they're just going so dang slow. I didn't get it. I thought they were just taking it easy, but no, apparently not. And that is the beauty of this bike, you know. Plus, there is a benefit to the lack of horsepower because don't know if you've been watching my throttle hand or not, but I've got her pinned more often than not. Every time I'm coming out of a stoplight or out of a hard corner or something, I've got her running wide open, right to, well, I guess this bike really doesn't have a red line, right till the power runs out, upshift and lay into it again. And it's just, it's exhilarating being able to do that. Because, dude, that bike has given it all it's got. I'm missing water shifts today, that's no good. But yeah, you know, the bike will readily give you all it's got, and it's just enough for you to be able to hang on, be a little bit nervous about where you're sitting. It's got a slippery seat, but just have an absolute blast doing it. And it's surprisingly quick. It may not feel that fast, but it's easy to hit the throttle at 40 miles per hour, look down, and suddenly you're doing 25 over the limit. And that's just, it's amazing. Being able to push a bike to its limit and just explore what it can do. The 1200 is, you can get pretty close to its limit and handling pretty easy. But with straight line speed, by the time you hit the power band in first gear, you're breaking the speed limit. Now the red line on the two bikes is about the same now that I've got the DG pipes on here, about 9,500 RPM. That's about where the 1200 is supposed to hit the limiter and where this starts running out of juice. And I don't know. And just after a while, the fact that you do have to rein yourself in so much, with the 1200 you have to be on your best behavior. Because if you're not careful, she'll make you sorry. This bike, I don't know. It's like that buddy that's always egging you on, always saying, push me harder, go faster, come on, let's see what we can do. The 1200 is like that big teddy bear of a guy who's strong enough to crush a man's skull with one fist, but definitely afraid to hurt anyone because he knows he can. And they're both good in their own right. You know, they've each got their advantages. I never take this thing out on the freeway for more than, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes maybe. But that 1200 can go all day long. Heck, it's, I gave it its first road trip test this Wednesday. This Wednesday. And it passes flying colors, 3 hours almost straight on the freeway. And I'll spend maybe $15 in gas for those 3 hours. Anyway, that's kind of my view on small bore bikes in America for, I don't know, as long as I've been around. Yes, the small bore era kind of passed its prime in maybe the 80s, 70s, 80s. This is one of the last of the great small bores, in my opinion. You know, I think it was like a 500 two-stroke they produced. Based off of this engine, it was a V4. And that thing was a monster, but after that, you know, the horsepower wars began. Japanese manufacturers went from, you know, small, powerful, you know, say 350, 400, 450, to getting as much ludicrous, insane horsepower as possible. This is when you start getting the 1000s, you know, 1200s, 1300s. Let's let her eat some real quick. You know what I mean? We're doing about 90 right now. My speedometer's falling behind. Even those cars for a bike from 1972. Doesn't take much for these little bikes to do the sun. And that was a big hallmark back then. That was the biggest goal. If your bike didn't do the ton, you weren't cool. I kind of forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, the horsepower wars. And Americans, being what we are, being who we are, we're all neck deep in the horsepower wars. We wanted the biggest, the fastest. We didn't really care about handling as long as it was able to blow the fastest supercar off the road in a straight line. And as a result, these little small bores kind of fell by the wayside because, you know, even the two-stroke, even this thing, just couldn't muster the horsepower going flat out as hard as they could. And that's kind of unfortunate. So then you ended up with the bigger bikes kind of taking over the scene. And I mean, that's kind of the era that the 1200 comes out of. You can see a bit of a generational gap with that. But in the US, people are starting to see the practicality of these things again, and there's starting to be a big comeback. Yamaha just, I think it was a year or two ago now, brought the R3 over here. It's just their little 320-something cc Super Sport. And it's supposed to be a mean little bike. I'd love to have one. Because, I don't know, it seems like it's the great-great-grandson of this bike, almost. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on things, so I guess we will end it there for today. I will see you guys later.